Okay, well, I guess we're going to get started.
Sure, yeah.
So welcome back to episode 44 of the Growing Band Director podcast. Very excited. We actually do have a couple new Patreon members who've joined us starting this month. Aaron and Lauren at $5 a month and Kayla at $3 a month. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the band directors who are reaching out and asking for help and saying that the podcast is helping them. And I appreciate that. That's sort of why we're doing what we're doing and all that. So I'm really lucky. I was here at a conference at Foxboro today called Creating an Art Spirit.
My man.
Yep. With Aaron Bush. Aaron, nice to see you
Nice to see you
formally
too.
in person.
My dude. Thank
Yep.
you.
You put on a couple great master classes
Thank you.
today that I wish everybody in Maine and around the country was there to see.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to rehash a little bit about what happened and what we did and,
Sure.
and all that. I just noticed at the end the connection that was made about how we rebuild from COVID and how the real connection is like making connections with people, right?
Yes.
Through great music, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I've always been told about your programs that quality music is the foundation of what you do.
Yeah, we're very fortunate here in Foxborough to have a rich tradition of music, really going back 45, 50 years. For Steve Massey, who was here for four decades, really, in my opinion, one of the greatest educators ever and the most beautiful human beings. Steve created a program here at Foxborough with high standards and tremendous opportunities for students. And it's a whole program. So it's not just a band program. We have a fantastic choir, fantastic orchestra, and a team of music educators that have a deep relationship with Foxborough and with one another. And we're very fortunate to have that here. And it's an honor to continue that tradition. I did my student teaching here back in 2006. And then I did 10 years teaching in middle school band, actually, in Needham, Massachusetts. And when Steve retired, I took over. And to do that really has been one of the biggest honors of my life because I love Steve and Foxborough has always been such a big part of my life.
So how is that to take over for somebody? Like, because that's a huge...
Yeah.
From the people I've talked to, you've done a masterful job.
Hey, thanks. Haven't broken it yet.
So what are some of the secrets that have helped when you take over for somebody who's done so much?
Well, I was very fortunate in regards to when I came in, I didn't need to fix anything. I didn't need to change anything really because the standard here was so high and the culture was so deep. I basically just had to keep things going at the level that they were before. And the great thing about Foxborough and all the cats involved with Foxborough, the staff, the parents, the students, I mean, I was always kind of hanging around here, even when I was teaching in another district, I would always come by for concerts and spend time with the kids and sit in rehearsals and hang out. So the kids really knew me before I even started. And on top of that, I teach in a very similar way to Steve Massey because I learned everything I know from him. So it was a smooth transition, and there was never any expectation from the community in terms of you have to do this exactly like Steve. And everybody was so welcoming and so loving because, in a way, this music program has trained the community to accept what high quality is. And there was a lot of trust placed in me because they knew that I came from the family of Foxborough Music Education. So I never felt any pressure really from the students. The pressure that I felt really came from myself. And I think that for young band directors, it's challenging when you take over for either end of that spectrum, whether it's a really high quality program or a developing program. There's constantly going to be expectation coming from yourself. Will I live up to the expectation that the community has of Mr. or Mrs. whoever before me? Or will they be able to be patient with me if I'm rebuilding something from scratch? And I think it's a matter of being true to yourself and recognizing why are we doing this? And that's something that I always try to tell myself. I've had 7 or 8 student teachers in my career. And one of the first things that I would always tell them is, so why are you doing this? And I would work with them to develop even interview question strategies. And I said, I've interviewed a lot of cats for positions over the years. And I've found that the people that get the jobs and the people that are in it for the right reasons always say the same thing. Why do you want this job? Well, because I love making music and I love working with young people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So when I took over for Steve and in a program that had, such a rich tradition of excellence, I mean, some of the premier ensembles in the country have come from the Foxboro Music Program, whether it's wind ensembles or jazz ensembles or choirs and orchestras. It's staying true to why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that I love making music and I love working with young people. And how fortunate am I that I have a job where I can play high-level music
Mm-hmm.
and I can work with outstanding young people. So yeah, it's tough being a high school band director. You're just talking about that, like 16-hour days, 17-hour days. But when you get to work with students like the ones that you saw today,
Mm-hmm.
man, it flies by. It's such a privilege. And as I said, to be in a place that I love so much and I loved before I even had the job here, it's all good, man.
So it seemed that you did a really good job as I was watching, and it's been established here. I don't know if you did it or you took it over this way or whatever, but it seems to be centered around the kids and around the music. I think it's very easy to make it around the music, but not around the kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that culture is huge.
It is, yeah. It's something that we really focus on here. We're in the business of people. We're dealing with human beings, and we're dealing with teaching students how to deal with struggle,
Mm-hmm.
and through that struggle you grow the most. And that third clarinet part, that second alto part, there's a kid behind that part, and that kid has a story. And that part, in order to teach that part, you have to learn the story of the kid. So we spend a lot of time here investing in students. That's why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to have great bands. We're a very student-first program where we think about every individual. We create an individual curriculum for each student to give them what they need to grow and develop and mature both musically and personally. And when we invest that deeply in students, they grow and the bands become good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a product of the deep level of investment that we have. I love that band.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the bands because, we're struggling together. Nothing worthwhile in life is easy.
Mm-hmm.
So when we struggle with difficult and challenging music, and we get our hands dirty with learning that chord chain, this chord progression, or playing the music of Holst or Sousa or Vaughan Williams or Bach or Beethoven or Duke Ellington, there's challenges there, and through that challenge we grow closer together.
And I think so many people can look at a program like this and list off the things you have going for you that not every program has, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also programs who have that who are not very good.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So it's always centered around those.
Yeah. I get a lot of cats that they talk about the Foxboro bands and they say, well, the Foxboro bands are always going to be good, and it's like, well,
it's people.
Well, no, they're not. It's actually really hard work,
yeah.
And people look at our jazz ensemble and they say, well, they always have, all the players they need and all the kids they take private lessons. And what they don't see is that there's a lot of hard work and a team effort that goes into play from all of our private lesson teachers, all of our middle school band directors, our elementary band directors, my colleagues here at the high school working in the chorus of the orchestra. It's a team effort, and we deal with everything that everybody else does. Mm-hmm. We deal with retention and recruitment. We deal with getting kids to buy into what we're selling. We deal with, balancing the music program with the other activities that they do. We deal with all of it. Mm-hmm. And that's all. That's good. That's what we signed up for, man. Mm-hmm. That's the gig, and that's totally cool. But when we encounter something as a team, a Foxboro music staff team, we work through it together. And we learn those kids' stories. We learn what we can best do to serve them. And we figure it out. And if, you don't have 4 trombones in the jazz ensemble, you say, hey, you'd be a great trombone player.
Yep.
Let me work with you after school on that. And then let me get you set up with someone who can take you to the next steps. Or, you solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And you never let your standards lower. And that means you work really hard. And that's okay. We wouldn't be in this business if we weren't willing to work really hard and if we didn't love kids.
And one of the things you're able to do here is the scheduling of your jazz groups. So, can you give us the pitch as to why jazz should be in the curriculum?
Oh yeah. Here we go. So, if we value our identity as Americans, we need to study the great American art form.
Mm-hmm.
And jazz is unique in that it is American. It's created in an American way. It's actually African in its origins, West African, but it grew and evolved and developed in America. So it's part of our identity. And when we study jazz, we are put into contact with the mythic substance of our human history, of our national history. And to that extent, I would argue that it's just as important, if not more important, than studying works in concert band and orchestra and choir. And that's not to say that it has to necessarily be different. You can teach improvisation. You can teach the language and the vocabulary of jazz in those other ensembles too, and gain the benefits from it. That's not even to mention the importance of improvisation. My gosh, when we improvise collectively or individually as students, we develop so many wonderful things. We're given confidence. We develop poise, soulfulness, sophistication, maturity. And through that creation of our own voice, our humanistic voice that is expressed through improvisation, because we can read music on a page. We can see that quarter note and we can see that 4-bar phrase and we can see those text lyrics in the choir song, and we can recreate that with beauty and sophistication. But when you improvise, you create something that is literally coming from your soul. Mm-hmm. And because of that, no one can tell you it's wrong. And yes, you can spit. Well, you're not playing the changes, man. I mean, like, you're not really playing a D7 chord there. It's D dominant, not D major 7, my dude. But it comes from themselves.
And they have to create something first before you can alter it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So the benefits of it are so huge. And in Foxboro here, we improvise in all of our classes. We improvise in the concert band. We're playing whatever it is. You play a Holst, the second suite in F, the second movement. It's in F Dorian. It's a folk song. So when we perform the second movement of Holst F, we'll teach that through improvisation. We'll play folk melodies in the folk style in F Dorian. And you can see it, the light in the students. It's like, oh man, I can create something like Holst. I can create something like Vaughan Williams. And as I mentioned today, there are so many directors, so many bands, jazz bands especially, that are focused so much on the music in front of them and playing the music for whatever festival, whatever the reason is, whether it's a full year jazz curriculum or something like a jazz season that starts after another part. Mm-hmm. Which I have thoughts on too, but I won't get into them. But it's whatever you're doing, if you're focusing on that music and not the improvisation, you're teaching every single tune basically by rote. But when you have a group where every student can improvise, that second trumpet part will be better. That third clarinet part, third tenor part, whatever it is, will be better.
Yep.
Because they'll be playing it with their own voice. They won't be recreating something from a page. And that's not to say that the other stuff isn't important too. It all works together. It's all part of a program.
Yep.
So when you talk about the success of the Foxboro program, it's not the band, it's the program. Mm-hmm. It's the choir, it's the orchestra, it's the middle school jazz band, it's the theory class, it's the arts and social justice class. We give students the opportunity, we afford them the opportunity to experience an entire music curriculum across multiple ensembles. And improvisation.
I wanted
to
touch on two things before I forget them. I usually have a pencil, and my pencil broke like 3 times.
Yeah,
man. Number one, you don't advocate for not having the concert band program, because kids who are in the jazz program are also in the concert program.
All of them are. Yep.
Right. Okay. Because a lot of people say, well, time out, because there's people who will move them into the jazz program and not have them in the concert program.
Oh, I would disagree with that.
Right. Okay.
I feel very strongly about that.
Yep.
Because everything benefits everything else. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about ensemble skills, your jazz ensemble skills can be reinforced in your concert band.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, absolutely. And if you align those curriculum together, I teach everything of the band on the band side, so I can reinforce because I'm the only teacher, and I recognize that's not as easy for some other cats that have multiple staff members, multiple ensembles. But I think it all benefit, and they should all be singing. They should all, and in a perfect world, they would be in every single class that we offer. But they have to also take Spanish and algebra, which is totally cool. Like that's fine because that can help too.
Yeah. One other thing I noticed from your clinics, I want to get into a couple of the concepts you did in your 2 clinics today, especially the first one.
Sure.
But how one of the things is you talk about the concept of having every kid learn the melody, especially to all the tunes that you're learning, right? So whatever jazz band tunes they are, they're all not learning their part. They're learning the melody by ear.
Yep.
So you're choosing tunes that whatever kids you have, imagine you're not in front of this group, you're in front of your second band or whatever, or a middle school band, you're choosing tunes they can learn by ear. Talk to them a little bit about that process.
Well, I mean, jazz is an oral art form, AURAL, and it was passed down from one individual to another individual. That's the tradition. So by teaching by ear, we're honoring that tradition, and we're also teaching them how to play by ear, which, as I'm sure you know and everybody listening knows, to have an ensemble that can play by ear at a very high level benefits intonation, benefits balance, blend, articulation, everything. If they activate the concept of listening in a deeper way without the help of music in front of them. I've always had some of the bands that have been swinging the most that I've ever worked with, the swinginest bands, are not reading music. They've either memorized something, they've learned it by ear. When we played Essentially Ellington, we do not read music. All those bands play memorized now. And there's something to be said for when you're reading music, it requires more attention that you have to dedicate, whether it's the vision side of it. Part of the energy that is being dedicated to reading that. And when you play by ear, it's like you take off a blindfold.
It's freeing.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of playing by ear. And in terms of the melody.
And before you do that,
Yeah.
I'll bet you teach your kids how to read, though, from when they're young.
Oh, yeah.
So, right, but there's programs who go rote and they don't.
Yeah.
So you really have to do both. Yeah.
Yep. And we play by ear in the concert band, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, but in terms of the melody gives perspective to the improvisation. So if we were playing a bassy tune or
You did Wiggle Walk today.
Wiggle Walk, a Benny Carter tune. Every member of the ensemble, as we study this chart, that's part of our curriculum, that's there for a purpose, which is not about playing a concert. It's they need to experience and be exposed.
Why did you choose? What are the reasons you chose that tune?
The form.
Yep.
The simplicity of the form to allow our younger improvisers to solo over changes and feel confident doing so.
Because it's one chord.
Yep,
in
it's
the
basically
A
a
section.
G minor jam for the A
Yep.
section. It's a classic 32-bar song form, AABA, and it's also an opportunity to reinforce the concepts of playing 2-5-1s in the bridge.
And even then, even if they don't play 2-5-1s, it's the relative major of the minor.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So and it's also the classic music of the swing era.
Yep.
Benny Carter. There's nobody that wrote for the saxophone like Benny Carter, and the voicings that he uses, the opportunities afforded to the rhythm section. It's a great chart, and it's one of 60 that we're playing this year. But when we improvise in that chart, as I mentioned, we want someone who knows what they're listening to walking in the room as we're all improvising together, saying, "Man, these cats sound like they're playing Wiggle Walk."
Because they're using the melodic material.
They're using the melodic material,
Right.
and it's not to have someone listening to you to give you like yeah, man. Who cares about that? It's about, can they put this all in perspective? And that melody itself is simplistic. It's played by, it's a bassy-esque piano melody. So it's approachable, it's accessible, and it's the changes. It's outlining the changes. So melody is so crucial, and teaching the melody by ear, so that they, either by dictating it to them, or by having them listen and copy it themselves.
So in order to get the jazz classes in the curriculum, you put a gym class before school
Yep. Well, there's a few things. I mean, we do offer a before school gym class that frees up a block, but that's not all our music kids are taking that. It doesn't really answer the question for you.
Mm-hmm.
But, I had another individual ask me, how do you get kids to be in this program when there's so many other things pulling them? And I get that. There's a million other ways these kids are being pulled with AP classes and honors classes. And I have whole thoughts on that too. I mean, do we really need to be taking 6 AP classes when we're, 17 years old? And of course I'm biased, but as simplistic as it sounds, it's kind of a cop-out to say this, but kids always want to be part of something high quality.
Mm-hmm.
And if you teach really well and you create an environment where kids feel safe and love one another and feel comfortable taking risks and are able to create something bigger than them individually, they're going to want to be part of it. And we're in the community a lot. We play in the community. We play concerts in the Common. We play for the elementary schools. We play 2 jazz guest artist residencies every year. A total probably of 10 to 15 gigs for the jazz ensemble. We played at the governor's, State of the State address last year in Boston. And because we're visible in the community and because their kids are learning a lot at a high level and want to be part of that ensemble, the parents trust us. The parents trust the program and our judgment. And that is part of the culture of Foxboro too, that Steve started for 40 years. So parents want their kids to be part of the program. And if individuals are saying to them, well, you need more AP classes, the parents are going to say, well, okay, what do you want? And the kid's going to say, I want to be in jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have wonderful opportunities. I love the people. I'm studying music that's awesome. It's important to them, and they make those choices, and they're difficult decisions, and they're not getting any easier because there's so many classes.
I noticed with your rehearsal schedule too that what about kids who are doing sports as well?
Yeah, I love that our students do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
I encourage our students, and it's not jazz specific. Our concert band program, we have basically an hour of sectionals every day after school. And each day afternoon is a different section from the concert band. And then after that is 45 minutes for the wind ensemble, which is our second tier ensemble, our more advanced players, our most advanced players. And we have kids that play on the football team. We have kids that march the halftime show in their football uniform for the marching band. We have kids that play lacrosse and soccer and baseball and winter track and spring track and cross country and math team and debate club. And I love that they do all that stuff. And I love it because we teach them that if you're going to be part of all these activities, that's awesome. Be excellent at all of them. Mm-hmm. And it's a valuable skill for you to learn as you're growing through adolescence into your teenage years to be able to budget your time appropriately and let the people know who are in charge of those organizations when you're going to need to be here or there. Yeah. And we work around it. We find a solution.
So you have times where kids have to miss because of something and all that.
The jazz ensemble, by and large, typically there are not many kids that miss any rehearsals. I mean, I never have kids miss rehearsals for that ensemble because they're the most dedicated. They play at the highest level. They invest the most. Yep. But if younger students have to miss a sectional or a rehearsal for this or that, great. Just let me know ahead of time, just like your boss will want you to do when you get a job somewhere, and communicate and be open about that and think about, what am I doing this week? What do I have to do for this activity, this club, this sports team, this ensemble, and figure it out. You can do it. You're getting to an age now in high school, I teach high school, where these skills are needed, and you need to demonstrate them because you're going to need them far beyond whatever you do in music in this program.
Yep. We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.